In the early morning hours of February 23rd, 1836, soldiers and civilians alike holed up in the crumbling adobe mission known as the Alamo could only sit there and watch helplessly as Santa Anna and his forces took the town of San Antonio de Bexar without firing a single shot. But inside the Alamo, things were chaos between Colonel Travis trying to send out couriers with last-minute messages, Colonel Bowie trying to assign quartering for soldiers and civilians alike, and Crockett was kind of running around trying to figure out where exactly he was going to be. But nonetheless, we see that things were not going so smoothly for the Mexican army either. But at some point during the chaos, Santa Anna orders that the flag of no quarter be hung from the belfry of the San Fernando Cathedral. And upon hearing of this, Colonel Travis orders that the 18-pounder be fired off towards the town. However, in retaliation, Santa Anna orders that 2 howitzers be set up, and they launch 4 grenades towards the Alamo before they hang up the white flag, hoping to negotiate terms of surrender. And it is said that both Bowie and Travis sent out different couriers to the Chief of Staff, Juan Almonte, who brought the letters to Santa Anna, but they were rebuffed each time, because Santa Anna stated that if they were to surrender, it would be unconditional. And so, with the answer given, Colonel Travis yet again orders that the cannon be fired, and the 18-pounder roars to life. At this point, the siege of the Alamo is on, and all the men inside can do is to wait, to watch, to do battle with the specter of the fate that awaits them. Now the second day of the siege dawns warm and cloudy, but one man inside the Alamo feels the cold chills of fever as Jim Bowie, commander of the volunteers, enters into the final stages of consumption. And finding that he is too sick to command at this point, he turns over full command of the garrison to Colonel Travis. Now, the very same morning, at about 9 o'clock, Santa Anna goes through the companies and demands that shoes be delivered to the preferred companies. And he also orders that a frontal advance be made upon the Alamo. At this point, a battery of 2 8-pounders and a howitzer were brought to bear at about 350 yards outside of the Alamo, well outside of rifle range. But that night, the rifles of the Texians holed up inside the garrison were to come to life, because sent out on a reconnoitering party, Colonel Bringas and his soldados made their way across one of the river crossings. But suddenly, shots ring out in the dark. Some of the soldiers are hit, and in the panic and confusion, they start rushing back across the bridge and knock Colonel Bringas into the water. Of course, they pull him back to the bank, and although he is wet and scared, he is thankful to have made it back to the bank alive. The next day, at 9:30 a.m., General Santa Anna orders that a division of Cazadores as well as the Matamoros Battalion begin to set up entrenchments at the Alameda just outside of firing range from the Texian rifles. But this, of course, would in turn lead to an hours-long rifle duel between the men of the Alamo and the men of the Mexican army. And we see that finally at about noon, the Mexicans gave up, dragging their casualties pell-mell back across the river crossing. But not all of the troops were to retreat, because some of them stayed behind in order to finish setting up the embankments for Santa Anna's artillery. That very same night, we see that Colonel Travis sent out some of the volunteers to set fire to the jacales, or huts, some of which had been previously burnt up during the actual duel itself. But he decided to try and put an end to any possible cover that the Mexicans could have got. And we see that they not only set fire to the huts, but they went ahead and retrieved much-needed firewood for the garrison. But that very same night, Colonel Travis writes a letter to Sam Houston informing him of their position and tries to get a courier to send it out. But we see that as Santa Anna had drawn his forces around the Alamo, to escape the walls would have meant to face almost certain death. So a vote was held, and Juan Seguin was elected. But Juan Seguin was allowed to take along his orderly, Antonio Cruz y Arrocha, and with the aid of Bowie's horse as a mount, the two set off in the darkness of night and made their way through the Mexican lines to deliver word to Sam Houston. But what will happen next to the men inside the Alamo? That remains to be seen in the next clip.